Throughout my life, I've been very fortunate to meet very special people. And my next guest on the show is one of those. And I'm thankful to count the 1991 Open champion, the champion golfer of the year for 91, as one of my favorite golf partners in all of the world, Ian Baker-Finch. So it's so good to have you on the show. How are you?
Mark, thanks for having me on, and great to be on with you again.
Yeah.
We had some tears and some sad times a week or so ago as I retired from CBS and public announcing. But we'll still remain friends, and maybe we can play even some more golf over the coming years.
I've got new golf clubs and a regular shafted driver for a little extra zip down below.
Very good. I think that'll be helpful. I think a lot of us, as we get older, not that you're old yet, but we feel because we always used stiff shafts, we should continue to use them. And I think most guys, once they get past 60, well, put it this way, if you can't swing faster than 95 mile an hour, you should be using regular shafts.
Agreed. Absolutely. Well, if I really get busy, I can get to 100, but I sort of cruise around 98, 99. So
I'm the same way. I'm cruising at 99, 100. After that tip you gave me up in Canada, I can get it up. If I hit, 30, 40 balls, I can get it up to 103, staying on the left side a little more and getting left shoulder a bit lower and pouncing up a little bit, or pouncing as much as a 64-year-old can pounce. But yeah, definitely working better.
All right. Okay. Now, I tweeted after your farewell from CBS here recently, and I said, look, this is how it's going to be. I'm not going to cry that it's over. I'm going to be happy that I got to experience it, the time with you. But now, thanks to the book, my friend, To Hell and Back, I've absolutely loved this. And I feel like you telling me stories, which you used to do over a glass of wine. So I love the book. And there's so many lessons in this that I want to share with the world, if you're cool with that.
Yes, please do. It's really, if I may, the book was written by Jeff Saunders. He took a long while, or I took a long while to say yes when he asked me initially to doing the book. But it's really a story that I have been placed into about the era that I grew up in. And really what tuition was like back then was so archaic in comparison to what we're doing these days and what's available to young people coming through the game, women and men these days. So it was so simple and so easy and so basic in comparison back then. And in fact, as you'll see in the book, there was a chapter really when I was an experiment in the early 90s with the equipment company that I was working with. Not that they intended me to be that way, but really I was, just because of that era.
Yeah.
So there's a lot to glean from the book, as you said, not just the teaching side of it, but just that era where we came through from rubber balls to plastic balls, from wooden heads to metal heads to extremely large metal heads, from steel shafts to even some aluminum shafts in the late 80s. To graphite shafts, and then cavity-backed irons. All of these different things happened from like 1985 to 1995 in that when I was 25 to 35.
It's the prime of your career at that time too.
Yeah.
Hey, I want to ask this real fast, because in the book you wrote, because the book's titled To Hell and Back, and I remember quizzing you on that, and you like, that's what the publisher wanted, because essentially you've made it to heaven and back with the Open Championship win, right? But somewhere in the book there, I can't remember where it was, where you were like asked, okay, Barbara Teller said this about you. If you'd been of that mindset, would you have dealt with the slump and form a bit better? And you said, perhaps I see where he's coming from, but if I knew what I know now in terms of technique and all the information I have, I could have gotten myself out of the slump. I'd love you to elaborate on that, because I think there's a lot of gold to mine there.
I was attempting to regain what I had lost, as opposed to moving forward, practicing and accomplishing a very high level of various aspects of my game that was still there, rather than trying to find out what I was doing wrong
Gotcha.
I should have gone and worked harder at the things that I was doing well that I needed to do well. And I think that's a lesson learned in itself.
Mm-hmm.
And I really mean that had I had the science available to me then that is available now, first thing, I wouldn't have worn my body out. I wouldn't have had to take 6 months off to rehab my shoulders and have my feet fixed and what have you, because I was hitting so many drivers every day. Had I been able to see with force plates and with TrackMan technology, if you will, tracer technology, if I'd been able to see all of that and see where I was going wrong, if the people trying to help me could interpret that correctly and help me through that, I really think I could have done it myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I did see a lot of coaches, and a lot of coaches really was so valuable to me at that time, trying to help me through. I'm not blaming anyone. It was just my lack of understanding. But more than anything, I believe I was trying to regain something that I'd lost rather than continuing to work on what it was that I needed to do to make me better.
So wise. And I love your use of the word understanding. That sort of segues me to a comment made, like you've been, the book is loaded with anecdotes and cool stories, right? Because the tour was different then to what the tour is now. But you
Yes.
came up in Australia from, out in the remote parts of Australia, and Jack Newton, thoroughly quotable, spoke of you and Wayne Grady going, they're so good because they grew up playing crap golf courses. Okay.
Correct.
Now, I've contended this for a while to say, hey, playing in difficult conditions makes you a more rounded player.
Mm-hmm.
And people would take umbrage with that observation. But here it is in the book. And I was like, yes, praise the Lord. This is so wise because, perfect conditions all the time, you don't learn that much. But yes, you came up hard Scrabble and made you one of the greatest players ever to have played the game.
Well, thank you for saying that. I'm not sure I'm that high up in the pecking order, but I got pretty good at it, and so as did Wayne Grady.
Mm-hmm.
But we grew up, and Peter Senior, and I could name so many names that you'd all know: Peter Fowler, Mike Harwood, Mike Clayton, Roger Davis. We all came through that era, through hard knocks, through playing on crappy golf courses, especially on the Sunshine Circuit, which is what I played. My college years were playing mini tours in Queensland, which was the Florida of Australia, where it was warm through winter. You couldn't play anywhere else. It was, not as good as sunny as it was up in Queensland. Mm-hmm. But the courses were dreadful, and we played in remote areas. But the one thing that we had is we had a bunch of really good young players, and we were all competing against each other for not very much money. $100 was a decent check, and $1,000 was substantial. You'd buy all of your mates a steak dinner if you won $1,000.
Right.
And so that ability to shoot a score for your living on poor terrain and far from ideal greens was a lesson learned. And so many players from that 4-year period where I played from 80 to 83, so many good players came through from there. The guy that ran second to me at the British Open was Mike Harwood, and Mike Harwood and I traveled 1 year together playing these courses.
His swing wasn't as interesting time. His swing wasn't as pretty as yours, just for the record.
No, but he was a grinder, wasn't he? He was a very, very good player. And it's funny, in the book, quick story, 10 of us got on a little bus. We hired a bus, carried a U-Haul trailer behind for the suitcases, clubs were piled on top, 10 of us in this Nissan minibus. And we traveled for 3 months in this bus. And 2 major champions, myself and Wayne Grady, on that bus, playing for $1,500 pro-ams and things like that. So, yeah, what Jack was meaning was these guys from Queensland, or the guys playing in Queensland, came through the school of hard knocks. And they're better than those that came through from the great courses because they've figured out how to shoot a score. And I think that's why the Open is different. Just quickly, the Open Championship, especially in the older days, was a bit more rough and ready, wasn't it? It wasn't so perfect.
Yeah. Don't you think there's an element of gratitude to that too? Because I remember coming to the States for the first time, and there was a driving range with range balls, where I used to have to shag my own golf balls. And so you get there, you're like, wow, this is so cool. Yet sadly, we lose that that attitude once we exposed to it for any sort of length of time. But I think the gratitude kind of helps one really advance through those tough stages too.
100%. You work hard. You're so grateful when you get to a high level golf course, a country club style of course. When I first went to Melbourne and played in the Sandbelt, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm in heaven. This golf course is so superb. These greens are like carpet. It was so perfect from where we'd come from. When I first went to the States, the same thing. When we played in Europe, we had range balls, and I used to carry around a bag of 100 Dunlop balls in my little carry bag. I'd travel with. We'd throw it on the plane. We'd get off in Heathrow and we'd get our clubs in our shag bag, and every week we traveled with them. And it wasn't until I got to the States where we had range balls there, and then they had a choice of range balls in the mid 80s where we had Titleists and Max Flies, and now it's there's 10 different sorts of Titleists. There's all of this. So players these days are very spoiled in comparison to how we came through. It's just a sign of the times, really.
All right. Hero of mine and a hero of yours, and you get to call him friend and mentor, the late Peter Thomson. It's a golf swing that I have on a few videos on my phone, and I watch it on a loop. He took a shine to you and sort of became a mentor to you. And one of the chapters is called At the Feet of a Master. And that was about your time with Peter Thomson. So I'd love you to maybe share a nugget or two from learning from the 5-time Open champion.
I was very fortunate. And the gentleman that I've become very close to, Jeff Saunders, who wrote this book, was very good friends with Tomo and also with Sir Bob Charles. He had dabbled in professional golf as a young man and got his card and started to play, realized that it wasn't for him, and he became a lawyer. He was a very smart guy. So he got out when he could at the right time.
All right.
Tomo had always said to Jeff that he was so disappointed that what happened to me, that I'd become really good. He thought I could be great, and I kind of lost my way for whatever reason. He said I had this great short game, and all of the things that Tomo really helped me with were simple things that I could relate to. And I think his ability to pass on nuggets of wisdom to a young man like myself in my early 20s was a gift. He had a gift. He was once asked to write a book on how to play the game and his swing. It was about 1.5 pages, his entire thoughts. So if you can relate to that his nuggets of wisdom to me when we played were into the breeze up the hill, just pop the ball back in his stance an inch or two and take an extra club, hit a little flat draw in there. When you're playing a dog leg to the right, your tendency will be to always lean a little bit to the right. So give yourself a bit more room. Aim a little wide of the corner, because your tendency will be to lean a little bit that way. Simple things that were the putt that you have to hit a little firmer up the hill. Look at the front of the ball, not the back of the ball. If you're reading a left to right putt, putt with the putter outside the ball, and then step back into the putt. You'll see the left to right line better. Just simple things. One day we'd finished playing, and I played a lot of golf with him as he was preparing for the Champions Tour, as I was preparing to go overseas, 83, 84. Okay. We played a lot of golf. We always walked, carried or dragged our bags. And I was going out to hit balls one day after we'd finished, and he said, "Why are you going to the range? You played beautifully." I said, "Oh, I need to practice." He said, "You don't need to practice. Get a handful of balls, pop down to the 17th hole and practice going 4-4 to win. I just want you to learn how to finish off. Get a handful of balls, 4, 5, 6 balls, and play them all and learn how to go 4-4 to win. And practice that," he said. So just that type of stuff, Mark. It wasn't anything to do with grip or stance or alignment or anything fancy. It was just these nuggets that I picked up on.
I actually had that one on my notes. I wanted to ask you about the 4-4 to win, because I think there's savvy genius in that. And I've long time said as a coach, maybe I'm sure I learned this from somebody, that if you play your final 3 holes for any golfer, especially an elite golfer, and even par or better, you're climbing up leaderboards. If you're a bogey golfer, if you play them in bogeys or better, you're climbing up the leaderboard, because it's amazing how many folks will wilt as you get closer to the finish line.
Imagine if Tommy Fleetwood could finish 4-4 more often. He might have 7 wins instead of 7 seconds. Right? It's such a crunch time, and it's what we're talking now, and I'm sort of giving away the timeline of watching yesterday how Justin Rose played the last 8 holes he played in 5 or 6 under, I believe. So he finished strong. He wasn't even in the conversation until the last 20 minutes. And then all of a sudden, the others didn't finish off as strongly. And JJ Spawn came through quite strong. And obviously Justin Rose. And Tommy couldn't get it done. But you're right. If you can finish strong, if you have that mental ability, or you practice it, that's far more important than hitting 105 irons on the range.
Okay, your TV career is coming through, because you've segued us to the next chapter I want to talk about. But for the folks who are wondering, that was Finch's observation was from the 2025 FedEx St. Jude Championship. Fleetwood had the lead, made a late bogey on the 71st hole. Justin finished with a few birdies and then won in a playoff. Okay, your breakthrough win as a professional was in 1983 in the New Zealand Open. And I thought this was so special because here recently in 2025, maybe it was last year, you went down to call a New Zealand Open and you crowned the champion, which was a really cool story in itself. But I want to, the breakthrough win, that first one, it's always so hard. So share maybe a story or two, a lesson from that, please.
Believing in yourself and trusting yourself is imperative.
Okay.
At this level, you learn that as you go along. And kids these days, there's so much wonderful information sharing and so many great coaches like yourself available to everybody. Back in my day, I learned from the Jack Nicklaus book. I learned from asking other pros on tour that were 10 years older than me that had been there. They'd give you snippets of wisdom like, you've got a 4-footer to make the cut, or a 4-footer that you really need to make. Take a deep breath before you hit the putt. Just simple things like that was what we were being told. When I went to the New Zealand Open in '83, I had finished second the week before at the Australian Open. And I had played not so well leading into that Australian Open. And I really just trusted myself and my technique and my putting stroke. And for whatever reason, I said, I'm just going to do that from now on. I'm just going to trust myself. No second guessing. And when I went to the New Zealand Open, I actually played with Wayne Grady all 4 days. And he ended up finishing second or third. Stuart Rees and Wayne Grady were right there beside me. And I was so confident that when I missed the putt, I was so upset that it missed, but I'd just go around and tap it in. Even 3 and 4 footers, I'd kind of reach over sometimes and tap them in. I just convinced myself that I needed to be aggressive but trusting, and rather than, sometimes we get a little, and I can watch it when I watched Tommy yesterday. He wasn't the same person the last 4 holes as he was leading into those last 4 holes. And I can remember myself being that way until I won. And then when I did win, I won another 6 or 7 times in the next 15 months in Australia and elsewhere. I just trusted myself to play the way I play, and the good things will happen. Obviously, they don't always.
Yeah.
But I think that's a big part of it. And those 2 weeks changed my life. Runner-up at the Australian Open, winning the New Zealand Open. I won $34,000 in those 2 weeks. And that was more money than I'd ever seen.
That'll free up your golf swing a bit, won't it?
Yeah, exactly. And I got an exemption into the British Open, which then was another story to make my way to St Andrews in '84 because of those couple of weeks. And then I won again a couple of times before then going to the Open.
Well, let's go to that, because quickly thereafter, you talk about, it's a chapter, the 1984 Open at St Andrews. And the byline is a major lesson at the old course. And I've not read the chapter yet because I want you to tell me the story. So what was this major lesson? Because I know how it turned out with Seve winning in the end, and I know you were in the final group.
Yes.
So what was the big lesson?
So two lessons really. The first lesson was I always like to get to an Open Championship early. I got there on the Saturday and I played Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, all 4 days with Peter Thompson, who had won 5 Opens, Kel Nagel, who had won the 1960 Centenary Open at St Andrews, and Graham Marsh was another idol of mine who was 20 years older and a wonderful Australian champion, won on all tours. And we played all 4 days, the 4 of us. The first 2 days, Sunday, Monday, Tip Anderson, who was the famous caddy that caddied for Arnold Palmer all those years, Tomo said, "Hey, Tip, I know Arnold's not getting in till Monday night, Tuesday. Why don't you come caddy for my boy Ian?" So I had Tip Anderson teaching me, Kel Nagel, Peter Thompson, Graham Marsh showing me his masterful swing for 4 days at St Andrews. I had never played links golf. I had never been to St Andrews. And then led for 3 days. I actually played with Nick on the Saturday. I shot 71 in the wind and he had 76. That was the first time to really get to know Nick Faldo and know of him. And then I played with Tom Watson in the final round. And the lesson really was from shooting a poor final round and not winning and watching Seve famously on the 18th green in that dark blue sweater that he wore for the next 7 years every Sunday. That was a lesson in itself. But the real lesson was my goal had always been to play in the Open Championship. And that performance made me realize that I could set my goal to win the Open Championship. Okay. That's when I really arrived. I trusted myself enough to go overseas after finishing so well at the end of '83 and winning the New Zealand Open to go over and give it a crack. I brought my now wife, Jenny, with me, and we went off, 2 young kids. Jenny was 11 at the time. And off we go. No, I'm only kidding. But that was,
okay.
Right. So anyway, that was really the start of my believing in myself that I could become a champion golfer.
Do you think, well, that was your personal anecdote, but now I'm asking the wise Ian Baker-Finch, who's a mentor, he's a granddad, he's a father, you've seen the comings and the goings. Your confidence came from winning in New Zealand, and then you go to the Open, you're in the final group, and you have the experience to say, okay, I know I can do this now. Do you believe, though, that there might be someone who's not in that place that goes there the first time and they just have belief enough when they get there to pull it off, or is that more happenstance?
It doesn't happen very often, does it?
No.
But I think these days more so. I think where I came from, I got my first set of clubs, 5 clubs in a little bag and a trolley when I was 12.
Mm-hmm.
And then 11 years later, I'm nearly winning the Open Championship coming from Farmerstown.
Yeah.
It's kind of unbelievable, really. And that's hence my belief that the book should have been to heaven and back rather than to hell and back. But I think, yes, someone that has extreme talent, that's been trained and coached well and has great mentors around them like yourself and a good team and good parenting, etc. I think they could get there and maybe do it like a Colin Morikawa did.
Yeah.
Won his first major. Who else did? Keegan Bradley won his first major too, I think, didn't he?
And then Ben Curtis, which was a bit of an
outlier. Ben Curtis, exactly.
Well, Spieth was very close. And then obviously Tiger Woods, but Tiger was generational.
Yes, yeah, he was phenomenal, wasn't he? It's a strange one, but even competing at a high level at a young age is extremely difficult to achieve, and there's so many more these days, like young South African Aldrich Potgieter.
Yeah,
he's an amazing talent, but he's an athlete in a fantastic way, isn't he? He has an ability to swing at 128, 130 miles an hour. So usually there's those ones that really accomplish a high level at a young age are some sort of, and I mean this in a nice way, some sort of freakish ability. My freakish ability was really, I was just so simple and everything was easy at that time, and my putting was really good, and I didn't really make much of anything. I think that was my strength. These days, you really need to be strong and athletic and fast, and you build on all the other attributes that you might acquire, but you really need that athleticism, I think.
Yeah, I would add to that wisdom there that you don't fall to the top of the ladder. It's hard work. It's not going to happen accidentally. That's for certain.
For sure. That's a great analogy that you don't fall to the top of the ladder.
It's climb.
I can promise you, though, a couple of years later, I fell to the bottom of the ladder. Still working just as hard. So sometimes confidence is an unusual thing, but confidence is a must if you're going to perform at a high level.
Oh, amen. Right. Another chapter here, and we're skipping through some of them. Again, the book is a fantastic read to hell and back. And then there's a chapter, A Return to the Old Grey Tune.
Mm.
And the byline was Studying Fellow. So now you've gotten the good fortune of playing against Nick, working alongside Nick. You and I both, you for longer than I did. He's a fascinating character.
Yep.
He's a tremendous golfer, Hall of Famer. From that experience at St Andrews again, what you say studying and learning from Fellow, what was the study? What did it entail?
Realistically, simply put, it was his amazing ability to put all other things aside and focus on what his task, what was necessary. And we were once again at St Andrews in '90. I was in the last group with Nick, and had a chance. Although Nick was playing so well, my real thought was I have to play great if I'm going to catch him or beat him. But let's at least run second if you can't catch him, because I think he was 4 or 5 in front.
Yeah, he was well ahead.
He didn't know I was there, not in a nasty fashion, but he had no care or worry about anything else. When you play St Andrews, everyone involved in the tournament is between the guidelines and within the course, because you go all the way out, then you come all the way back. All of the greens are shared. There is nowhere else for the TV people and the journalists and everyone to go but out there with you.
Yeah.
And it took me a long while to come to grips with that everything was going on in front of me. Nick just marched forward, never worried about a thing. He regularly on the way home, and I know this wasn't intentional, he always went to the right side of the tee and stood at the tee marker on the right side of the tee. When you come home at St Andrews, the last 6 holes, the sun is coming from the right side, and his shadow was where I was teeing up the ball pretty much every time.
All right.
I asked him 5 holes in a row, Nick, can you move? Oh, sorry. So that's what I learnt from Nick, was his ability to just be totally oblivious to everything else and anything that was going on around him. And he won in record fashion, I believe 19 under. And I say that, Nick could be listening here, and he knows I love him like a brother. It wasn't that he was being nasty. He was just being Nick, and Nick was 100% into his game. And it's something that I needed to get better at. I was like, I saw every squirrel, I was dancing in the clouds all the time. And the next year I made myself really work on that focus. And I was lucky enough the next year to play with Mark O'Meara in the final round. And I think that helped me as well, being in a comfortable environment.
Next year was 1991, Birkdale. I'll say this because it speaks to how wonderful the world is, and people can get some fortunate breaks. Now, for me personally, I got to know you a few years back, and we recently played golf. Again, this is in 2025 in Canada, and I remember walking up a par 3 there, and I said to you, by the way, you were like a hero of mine, and I will remember the pink shirt and the black Daiwa cap, and you not missing a shot going out there in 29 or whatever it was at Birkdale. Sunshiny day. Every shot was hit on a button. It looked like you made every putt you were over. And I hung on every shot that you hit during that final round.
Mm-hmm.
And here I'm playing golf with you. And then the following year, you actually asked me for a golf tip or two. And I'm like, this can't be real. But anyway, here we are. So
yeah, that's what I was wearing.
There you go. And the gray slacks. Yeah.
That was the final round of the Open. So the book's really Ian Baker-Finch. It's really just a byline to hell and back at the bottom. And that was what I think everyone will remember me for, that black Daiwa hat and the pink shirt. And I played so well. I hit every shot that day just straight at the flag.
I tried to copy your golf swing, Finchy. After I watched that, I actually recorded the thing on a VCR cassette tape. And for the next how many weeks, I was trying to be Ian Baker-Finch at 5'10", which wasn't working, but that's aside.
Yeah, it's hard. I was trying for 5 years as a youngster. I was trying to be Jack Nicklaus with, both my legs tied together were the size of one of his thighs when he was playing well. So we all try and do things. Some, as I said before, players have certain attributes that you just can't copy, like Peter Thompson's swing. How wouldn't it be amazing if you could just copy Peter Thompson's swing? How effortless and perfect it was. But yeah, I was swinging well then, and I look back on that swing, and I was perfect at the top, and I never missed a shot. It was a lot of fun to lead again, to play in that final group, to play alongside Mark O'Meara. A little aside to that, Mark O'Meara won in 1998 at Royal Birkdale. So that was a nice story. He'd played with me in 91, and then he won in 98. It was great fun, and to have a 3-shot lead going up the last. I could play safe. I played for bogey just to make sure I kept it out of the traps on the right, out of bounds on the right, played into the left rough, laid up, chipped and 2-putted for the 5. But 64, 66 on the weekend was some of the best golf I can ever remember playing. And Mark to this day will say to me, we often do some talks at the Masters, and he says, that was the best round of golf I've ever seen. He never missed a shot. I had a 5-shot lead after the first 7 holes, and I hit every green and 2-putted from there on in. One of the par 5, 17 for birdie, 2-putted for birdie, and then the last missed that green and 2-putted for bogey. But that's all I had to do because I was so far in front.
I remember the thing that jumped out to me, and it was an iron shot somewhere on the front 9. It looked like you had 7-iron or something in your hand, and you made the pass, and it was perfect balance in the follow through. And that to me was always kind of like the exclamation point on the shot. It's never like you were out of balance. And even to this day, you spot that finish. So I'd love your take on the value of good balance and finishing properly in the golf swing, please.
I don't know whether it's as prevalent these days in coaching because they're all teaching that clearing the left hip and jumping up off the ground. So the balance doesn't look as easy as we used to make it look. Mind you, Rory McIlroy looks pretty balanced and finished, doesn't he? I love his finish. And so I comment, as you know, so often on television about the smooth rhythmic swings that finish in a nice balanced position. I think coaching these days is a lot more about the speed and the whip and getting off that left hip, and etc. So it's not as seen as often. But to me, to be able to swing within yourself and still generate power and force is essential. And if you can swing to a full high finish, up onto your right toe, we used to try and finish into your left hip, let that left shoe turn out a little bit. Balance, rhythm, timing. I think those things are still a bit forgotten in coaching.
Well, look, for the club golfers watching and listening to this, I think it's like one of the 5 most important things in swinging a golf club. Now, if you're elite and you can square the club head up while using all of that leg action, all power to you. But for club golfers, I would advocate you finish balanced every single time. You're going to hit the ball a whole lot more squarely if you do.
Yes, I agree. And even if you have a practice swing and kind of even fake that balanced finish before you make your swing on the course.
Yeah.
Like have a swing and finish up there and pause and top and keep that feeling and that thought within when you do make your own swing. I like that. I think that's a good tip from you.
Yeah, lovely. I hate to ask the question, but I must, because a real part of golf is the ups and the downs. And obviously you experienced the highest of highs. I said so in my tribute to you, where I'm more impressed with a man, but the claret jug's a big deal. Okay. So that's at the pinnacle of our sport. And then the game goes in the doldrums a little. But I think you sort of summarized it well, that you didn't really focus on the things that you should have focused on. But you're such a motivator in my time with you. So for someone watching this who's like, I want to learn from the Open champion, just motivate a little bit, please, Finchy, because I know you can help folks who are struggling with the game right now.
The very troubling thing for me is that I didn't continue on when I did go through that 2 years of poor play and poor competitive spirit nature.
Yeah.
That there was a hard thing for me to, even now looking back, it's a hard thing for me. It would have been nice. I was telling Max Homer about it recently, telling him where I was and how the depths of my despair, how poorly I played for a while. I was so happy to see Max playing well again. And he said, "So tell me your happy ending, your good story." And I'm like, "Well, I'm doing TV now. I didn't come back
Okay.
to winning tournaments again." But in those days, there wasn't as much money around, and I needed a job. I'd had 2 poor years. I had 2 young girls at home and a wife that were looking after them. It was a struggle for a couple of years. I needed to fix some injuries. So I did step aside from the game in the hopes that one day I would come back to it. But I stepped into the television world and had another career. But through that time, I still practiced just as hard. For 2 years, I hit 50 drivers on the range before I went to the first tee every day. I wore myself
been
out.
exhausted. Gosh.
It was ridiculous, and I never missed one. It was back in those days. It was 265 yards. It wasn't 340 yards, but I was determined I was going to take that swing to the first tee, and I just couldn't get into my head that I could, and I lost my confidence almost completely. I was stripped naked of all confidence.
Mm-hmm.
I could still go play on the weekend when I got home and play quite well. I could shoot 66 on the Wednesday and win the Pro-Am at these tournaments. But then when I got to the first tee, I could hit it out of bounds just as easy as those previous 50 drives that I'd hit.
Right.
So I didn't really give up trying to be a professional golfer or trying to be better or trying to figure out what was going wrong. I just think I went about it the wrong way, as I said earlier, and probably wouldn't have gone through all that had I had the ability now with the science available, etc. But very, very fortunate to step aside and get a job in television. Obviously, I could do it because I was offered the job and they kept hiring me. So I must have been reasonable at it for all those times, all those years.
You are.
Mm-hmm. But I learned a lot for sure. And I tried to keep my head up, but it was quite embarrassing going through the bad times. I never really got angry. It was more an insular feeling of, I really can't believe I'm doing this. And the bad part is when you don't know what you're doing, you really need good people around you. You need a good coach. You need good people. And I was fortunate in my life to have a great wife and great family and good people around me to help me through it, which it wasn't easy for a couple of years for sure.
Yeah, but I want to say this, and then I'll give you the chance to sign off after my observation. Through it all, though, you have a love affair with golf that makes me envious. Here's a game that's taking you to the highest of highs and to the lowest of lows, to a place where you're using words like despair and embarrassment. Those are like real human emotions that make you want to crawl into the fetal position. But I watch you now, and it's like you love golf, and you can't wait to play golf, and you play golf nearly every day. And I'm like, this is just that's like a happy ending to what's been a fantastic career story.
It is amazing. And there's no real way of explaining it apart from the fact that I have always loved the game. I've always loved to play. I've loved what golf brings us, the camaraderie, the life lessons. It really is a lesson in life every time you go around. And you can tell a lot about a person. I know this is cliche. You can tell a lot about a person in a round of golf, but you really can. If you're going to get hired by somebody, the boss should take you out for a game of golf beforehand just to see your, the way you react and the way you are. I think it's a good thing. I missed all 15 cuts in 95 on the PGA Tour and 11 in a row at the start of 96. And after all those 26 missed cuts, I would still go home and play on the weekend with my buddies at the club. It was I just loved to play. Yes, I was trying to get better, and I still try and get better. And the last 2 days I played, I had 72, 71 the last 2 days at my club at Jupiter Hills. And I learned a lot from watching Cam Young and having the the honour of being able to call his first win, the 1000th win on the PGA Tour at Wyndham Championship. Jim Nance so graciously said, "Finchy, I'm going to give you your last call. You call the champion."
Mm-hmm.
The last few days at home, I thought about Cam Young and how well he swung the club and how well he paused at the top and his beautiful swing, powerful swing.
Yeah.
And I started to really pause at the top. I'm going to keep doing that. And as you said, the balanced finish, pause at the top, a balanced finish. I played really nicely and get the putter working again. I'll be back shooting in the 60s in no time. But I still love to learn. I still really love the game and want to get better. I'm not hitting hundreds of balls all the time. I'm too old and it doesn't work well for the back or the hip. But I do love to go play. And even if I've only got 3 hours, I'll run up to the club and hit 10 balls and zip around with a buddy in 2.5 hours and get a game of golf in.
And play the ball down. Is that your final marching orders, right? No bumping the ball into good lies, yes?
No. Oh, no. Got to play it down. But I'm used to that.
Yeah, because you grew up on crappy golf courses.
Exactly.
And you are a legend at life, let alone golf. Tell folks where they can find the book, please.
Oh, well, it's there. There it is. If you're looking, it's Ian Baker-Finch, To Hell and Back. Jeff Saunders was the author. Adam Scott was so honoured me in doing the foreword. Stevie Williams, my old caddy that caddied for Tiger all those years, wrote a little thing in there for me. He's such a great mate. But Hardy Grant is the publisher, and it's on Amazon, and you'll enjoy the read. It's a great story about golf in our era.
I'd highly recommend. One more question. Now that you're retired and you're grandfathering and husbanding and all these important things, are you going to be tweeting and such, Instagramming? Can folks follow you there?
Instagram is just Ian Baker-Finch.
All right.
I stay away from the madding crowd, if you will, and I just post lovely photos of grandbabies and travel and golf courses.
Finchy, you have earned your rest. It's love to have you on. It's a thrill. I'm thankful to call you a friend, and I'm so grateful you would come on, because the lessons you share, you would be doing Peter Thompson proud. You really would. So thank you very much.
I hope so. Thanks very much, Mark. Love you like a brother, and thanks for having me.